My guest today is Ryan O'Leary, an American infantry company commander who has fought in Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. We talk about drones, Russian infantry tactics, Ukraine's manpower issue, and much more. Okay, let's go.
Conflict, politics, military-industrial complex, technology, war. The Flash Traffic Podcast.
And some of my command took issue with it, so now I'm protesting, you could say.
so you have kind of like an Irish thing going on. So, Irish special forces.
I think they're probably going to tell me to shave in the next week. They're pretty annoyed with it, but at least for now, maybe they'll let me grow. Maybe they'll tell me I can grow a beard back.
Look, you have to bracket everything, so you gotta find out where the limits are. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I had like a full on jihadi style beard, like no trimming, nothing. It was pretty bad, but
so you look like you look like the good Chechens. I call them the good Chechens, the guys that fight for Ukraine.
Yeah,
if there are any left,
basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's still quite a few here. I think anyway, at least last I knew.
What general area are you in? Are you in the Donetsk or Zaporizhia or like when you're working?
Donetsk.
Donetsk. So Pokrovsk type stuff.
Yeah, like Pokrovsk, Leningrad, Sloviansk, basically the whole east.
Yeah. I think what people want to know more than anything is what's going on in Ukraine right now from your perspective. They don't want to hear it from journalists or academics or politicians. They want to hear it from you. What is going on?
I mean, that's such a general question. Like as far as like how the war is going, or like, because I mean, there's like a lot of things that are going on in Ukraine. Obviously, you have the war, then you have like the issues with like the civil society recently.
Well, we can start at the tactical level. What do you see? I mean, there's a lot of talk about the small Russian groups of 2 and 4 man infiltration teams walking around, and what do you see the Russians doing right now? And how's the drone war going?
So, like, there was actually like a pretty big attack recently. I think yesterday near where we're at, that used armor, but it's a rarity now. So the Russian tactics are basically evolving. So like we saw, you see some of this in Avdiivka where they just started pushing large amounts of like small maneuver elements, so 2 or 4 men. And that started towards the end of the defense of Avdiivka in like December of 2023, January 2024. As you got to where it is now, where fiber optics are there, FPV use is more prevalent. What you're seeing now is less armor usage, and instead they're using things like ATVs, UTVs, a lot of motorbikes. And basically what they do is, like, the whole goal with the assault elements now is basically to close the gap as quick as possible. They don't really care if like the troops are protected, because like if you're on an ATV, there's no armor. You're basically, open to the environment. So like the whole goal that the Russians have moved into because of the drones and everything is basically to close the distance to the 0 line and then try to get past it. So like a lot of times when these assault groups attack, they're not even stopping at the 0 line to like fight the Ukrainians. They just go past it and then try to hide. And once they get enough people built up, they'll branch out and then, either push back and get the Ukrainians out of there, or they'll just sit there and wait until they get more and more reinforcements. Like the easiest way to put it is like, it's maneuver warfare, but it's on like a micro scale. So like in the US military, we have maneuver warfare where it's like, a company sized element will, push a platoon here, and they use the speed and aggression to attack. But you can't use a platoon size element here anymore because of drones. So now what the Russians use is, 2-man teams on motorbikes, or like, one guy on a motorbike. They just get as far as they can, ditch the motorbike, hide in a building, hide in a fighting position, or they'll fight the Ukrainians if they can't get past the zero. It's highly attritional, though. When I was in Mirnograd probably 3 months ago, 2 months ago, probably May, June, July, August. Actually, it'd been August, so like 2 months ago. Uh, the Russians did like a 45 motorbike assault, and like two of them actually made it to the Ukrainian line. They got killed still, but like out of those 45 bikes, only two of them actually made it to the zero line. The rest of them, we were killing guys like 10, 15 kilometers away. So just getting to the zero line, it's a problem if you're trying to do like any type of maneuver or assaulting.
What is the drone warfare like right now? Because I know it changes all the time. What does it feel like right now? Does it feel like fiber optics are getting more prevalent? They're still doing FPVs with radio control.
I mean, it's a big mix of everything. Like I don't think fiber optic drones are gonna really, like, I think we've plateaued on fiber optic drones. Both sides are now, there's countermeasures. So both the Ukrainians and the Russians have like shotgun teams sitting around in tree lines, and they just wait for fiber optic drones or whatever drone to fly by, and they'll shoot at it. Because you got to understand, fiber optic drones, they can't go 100 kilometers an hour. They move slower. They don't maneuver as much, because if you swing around a lot in a fiber optic drone, it'll snap that wire. So they're easier to target. So both sides are now using like mobile shotgun teams, if you want to call it that, or mobile kinetic strike teams. So I think, like, for the most part, fiber optics have really plateaued. You're not going to see, everyone switching to all fiber optic. Not only that, like, there's a cost side to it. Like, the fiber spools are pretty expensive, along with the drone cost. Not only that, but it's more stuff that the drone team has to move to position. So like, I think like they're going to still be used. They'll probably be used for like ambush style tactics where they wait on the side of a road. That the Russians are, using quite a bit now, especially like the Rubicon teams. And then on the Ukrainian side, Ukraine will use them to continue to destroy, electronic warfare systems. And then once they hit the electronic warfare, they'll smack the whole area with FPVs like they've been doing for the last year as well. But like, I don't think like fiber optics in and of themselves aren't going to be the game changers in like drone warfare. They have too many limitations when it comes to maneuverability, speed, the explosive payload they can carry. Because like, if you want to have a 50-kilometer spool on a drone, now you're looking at like 8-inch, 18-inch to like 26-inch drone frame. And then your 50-kilometer spool is going to be 3 to 4 kilograms. So 6 to 10 pounds for your spool. So then that limits your explosive payload down to like 2 to 4 pounds, like, 2 to 3 kilograms roughly, whatever. So like, there's a lot of limitations on fiber optics. They're nice because you can get through EW, but at the same time, their limitations hinder them from being like rolled out in the same amount of numbers you'll see the FPVs.
Right. Hey, how about the Rebs? Are they still fairly effective? Are they still putting Rebs electronic warfare suites on every vehicle? What's the
Yeah, I mean,
situation with those?
when it like you don't really see them on the motorcycles much. You'll see them on the ATVs once in a while, and on like vehicles. Like EW, electronic warfare is always going to be a part now because of drones, but it's much easier for both sides to get around electronic warfare than it is to upgrade electronic warfare. So like, so with electronic warfare, how it works is you have a radio module that puts out like 1 watt, 2 watt, 5 watts, or whatever. That radio module then goes into like a power amplifier that boosts it up to 100, 500, whatever watts. The biggest problem is the more watts you have that your amplifier puts out, the more heat it puts out, which means you need a larger cooling system. So like, you're not going to see this, you're not going to see either side run electronic warfare jammers that jam from like 120 megahertz to whatever 9 gigahertz. It's just too big of a, you'd have to have it on a semi truck basically. You'll see like jammers around, but the difference is both sides have their ways to work around the jammers. They'll figure out what frequencies are being jammed, and then they'll just order a different frequency module, and now they're not being jammed. So it's like a constant cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
EW is honestly, I'm more of a fan of kinetic strike when it comes to like anti UAV stuff, just because shooting some like you can't really defeat a shotgun shell if it's like once the pellets are coming at your drone, they're coming at your drone. You can't jam a shotgun shell. You can't jam a person shooting it.
Mhm.
Obviously it takes more manpower for that, but like EW is always going to be here. It's much easier to get around it though, at least with the systems here in Ukraine and that Russia's using. Now in the US military or Western militaries, if you're using like an aero environment switchblade, you can't just you can't take out that radio module because it's proprietary, it's not consumer grade. So
Mhm.
like the West will have issues with EW more so than Ukraine, Russia, China, and some of these other countries who have more lax standards when it comes to like how things are developed with munitions and electronics and like how the military industrial complex works.
Do you have shotgun? Do you have a designated shotgun person in each fire team that is just a scan the skies kind of person?
Yeah, I mean, so every time we go out, we have somebody with a shotgun. Like we don't have the same person. Anyone who can like we'll usually go bring them to shoot clay pigeons. If you can hit a clay pigeon, you can hit a drone type deal.
Mhm.
Um, so like as long as they can hit a relatively decent amount of clay pigeons, we'll be like, here, you can use a shotgun today.
Yeah.
But we don't have like one set. Like we don't have the same person every time. But every time we have a team go out, they always have a shotgun.
This is a kind of probably more specific than need to ask, but I'm just curious. Longer barrel or shorter barrel? What is the preference?
I don't even know what length our shotguns are standard length. So like ours are straight off the shelf sportsman's like,
Mhm.
Mossberg 500. So not short
Right.
barrels, they're not overly long. I don't even
Yeah.
know if we have a choke in any of ours, to be honest. I think we just got them and then just use them. Like I don't
Yeah.
think we ever really like we never really looked around and tested out which choke works better. We
Right.
did test different types of rounds out, like which BB size, like double aught or
Mhm.
like, pheasant load or turkey load.
Yeah.
And like a lot of that's personal preference too. Some guys like running bigger BBs, some some like running, turkey or goose load, and some like running like pheasant.
Hmm.
So
That's interesting. And no microwave guns. Is that? Did you ever see those on
man,
the battlefield?
I don't
Ever?
I haven't seen any real microwave stuff here yet. I don't think we honestly will. The problem with microwave is like you need a pretty big power supply first off. Otherwise, you're gonna get like a one time, two time, three time use before you have to charge it. And like microwaves are pretty focused with their beams, so you'd have to be like tracking a FPV traveling at 110 kilometers and keeping it in that beam is gonna be hard. Like
Right.
you see like these prototype systems that drop these drones out of the sky when they flip a switch on, but what they don't show you is the big ass generator that's running the microwave to put out that much of a signal or that much to actually disable that electronic. Having that
Yeah.
in like a backpack form or like a gun form would be like impossible. It'd just your energy source would have to be massive.
Yeah.
Like
I've seen.
the easiest way to point it, the easiest way to like for people to understand this is go find your microwave in your house, go look on the back of it and figure out how much watts it requires to run, and then imagine like go on Google or use Chat GPT or some AI and ask how many like what battery pack size you'd need to run a microwave.
Right.
You
Uh,
know,
yeah, I've seen a lot of videos. I'm sure you have too of people shooting a microwave gun at an FPV drone, and then the FPV drone hitting them right, right on the gun, and then that's the end
yeah,
of the
like I
video.
mean, it's a neat idea, but like I could see, like for frontline stuff, I don't think you're ever going to see microwaves take off. Now, strategic assets like airports, like military air bases, naval docks, like you could probably run microwaves there because they're big static systems, and you
Yeah,
can get enough power that you need constantly to keep the system up in the air. Like you could probably keep the system on for 20, 30 minutes or whatever,
sure.
or do multiple short bursts over and over like as a drone gun, like I don't see how you could pack enough of a punch using just a mini battery pack. Like
Yeah,
it just doesn't seem feasible. Like in a perfect scenario in a test environment, you could probably do it, But like when the drone's flying at you at 110 kilometers an hour, you're like, it's not feasible.
Sure. What do you think is the casualty ratio right now, Ukraine versus Russia?
Man, I'm just in an argument on this now. Like, a lot of people think that Ukraine has higher casualties, but like, I just don't understand how people can think that. Like, if you've never been in the military, go talk to somebody who's been in the military. It's so like in Iraq or Afghanistan, when you go to clear a village, you know, not even a village, when you go to clear 2 or 3 houses, you know, you bring a company, you bring a platoon plus. Like when you're assaulting something, you're always going to take more casualties than like defending force, because like to assault an objective, you have to move through open ground, open terrain.
Mhm.
You then have to get into where those guys are at usually, or you have to be really good with grenades. Like it's just when an assaulting force has so many negative things that are like, you know, compatible with life if you want to live. Um, that like, because I mean, like, it's like, what is the old thing? Like, for each defender, you need 3 assaulters. You know, like if you think about
Right.
it, why do generals base their assault operations off that ratio? It's because somewhere in the past they've tried a 1-to-1 ratio and it didn't work out at all for the assault
Sure.
element. You also have to understand, you know, these front lines, like the Ukrainian front lines here, the Russian front line could be a kilometer, could be 2 kilometers. You know, it can be pretty far distance between two front lines. So if you're an assault element and you go to assault and so like, if here's the Russian front line and I'm a Russian and I go across the Russian line, I'm out in the middle of the no man zone, like in the middle of the two lines. If that assault fails, you have to go all the way back where you just came from. So like the odds of you making it back from a failed assault is very, very slim. Because there's drones up and like they're gonna hit you. If you're moving out in an open field, you're gonna get hit,
Mhm. What
especially past the zero line.
can you expand? Because I know you wrote an article on X, and I'll put the link in the show notes to this interview, to that article. It's called "Machines Don't Win Wars, Soldiers Do," and in there you describe just the pure chaos of the gray zone right now, uh, at zero on both sides. Can you just expand on how chaotic everything is
Yeah,
right
so
now?
like I mean, like saying there's like a gray zone is pretty much like, I don't know. I think people have a hard time grasping what the gray zone actually is. And this goes back even further, like 2023 time. You know, if you're when we were in Pervomaysk, which is east of Seladov, like southeast of Pokrovsk, like we were, I don't know, 10 kilometers from Donetsk city at one point,
Mhm.
800 meters from the Donetsk airport. Um, but like we were in this village called Pervomaysk, and the lines even there would get intermixed. Like if a Ukrainian unit further north, like another position would get taken, you know, there could be Russians there. In one of the last videos that we released where we had two KIA, Ethan and Soresh, actually it's three, is Ethan, Soresh, and Patrick were all killed on that op. They were killed from a position that should have been Ukrainian, but the lines were intermixed, and our guys didn't know about it. So like, the gray area isn't like a no man's land. Like it might be gray because neither side knows who's there, but somebody's there. It's just nobody knows who's occupying what, either because comms went down, comms got blown up, the people's position got hit, so they moved to a different house and didn't report it. Like this gray zone isn't where like there's no enemy, or like there's the gray zone has Ukrainians and Russians in it. It's just nobody knows where the positions are. Like there's
Mhm.
people that are in it actively all day long. It's just so like when you call it a gray zone, it's not like this area where nobody controls it. Somebody controls it, just nobody knows who controls it.
What? How do you
I
coordinate
mean,
with?
like
Yeah,
there's units, like as another good example, there's a unit near here. I'm not gonna say the number because like I don't know if it's released publicly where all the units are, but
sure.
there's a unit near here, and I put it in the article. You know, they had a position, they have like a third line position 10 kilometers into the Ukrainian side, like 10 kilometers past the zero on Ukrainian territory. They had a Russian walk up to them. So like
Mhm.
it's not like this World War I thing where the gray zone is just like machine gun fire sweeps back and forth, nobody controls it, and it's just empty. Like there's
Right.
people there, and then on both sides of the line, even on the Russian side, there's openings that you can go through and go past the Russian line. Um, just like there is on the Ukrainian side. Ukrainian side is largely due to a manpower issue, because like Ukraine really hasn't. I don't personally think Ukraine is focused on the infantry task like they should be anymore. They're pushing a lot of manpower into drone teams, a lot being like, each infantry battalion has a drone team, a drone company. Each brigade has, more a drone unit just for the brigade. So like a brigade will have 3 battalions in it. Each of those battalions will have a drone company. Then the brigade will have its own little separate drone element too. And then you also have the SBS, which is like the drone unmanned aerial systems unit now of Ukraine, like their regiment or corps. So you have even more drones there. So like the priority has not been on the infantry. And something I just said recently too. So like if you take a minor shrapnel wound, you could be out of combat for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Typically, if you get wounded, you go to the hospital, they pull the shrapnel out, and the doctor's like 30 days, fuck off somewhere for 30 days before you go back to your unit. And the problem is those guys that get wounded that are out for 30, 60, 90, they're not necessarily getting backfilled by healthy soldiers. Instead, Ukraine relies on the recovery time, and then the soldiers come back after recovery. So if a infantry company at the zero line takes one injured a day, that's 30 guys in 30 days that they're out. So if they had 100 infantry, now they're down to fucking 70. And if they're out 60 days now, that next month they're going to lose even more and even more. Sure, some replacements do come in, but it's not enough to refill while the guys are in recovery or even like with the dead, obviously.
What's the op tempo? How often are you replaced? How often do units rotate out?
I mean, that's really like unit specific. Our unit does a pretty decent op tempo, like, I don't know. I don't want to say exactly, but like less than
Mhm.
14 days
Mhm.
for us. Some units, like depending on the front line, depends where you're at, and also depends on your manpower that you have, like your staffing levels. Because like in a brigade, in an infantry brigade, if there's 3,000 soldiers in this brigade, they're not all infantry, and I don't think people understand that. Like in a brigade, you might have like 30% is your admin, staff, logistics, and then you might have 10% doing intelligence. You might only have like 30% of that 5,000 guys or 3,000 guys as infantry. So like if a unit is really low on manpower, they might do 30, 60, 90-day rotations off the front line. It also depends on if you can get replacements there safe enough. Like obviously there's always a risk to move, but a lot of brigades won't rotate guys if there's the heavy, heavy chance that they're going to get injured getting to position.
Mhm.
They'll just basically say, hey, you're fucked, you're stuck out there. We're going to bring water, food, and whatever else we can. We'll drop it from a drone. And
Mhm.
then you just sit out there until you can get reinforced.
In the Kursk area, they were getting trapped. So guys were getting trapped and encircled by Russians, and they were using SSO guys to go in and break them out. They would
Yeah, I mean,
go assault in
like
and break them out.
Kursk is a little different because like Kursk was like virgin territory. A lot of these places, like when you go up to like Seversk, Sabreski Forest, a
Mhm.
lot of these places have been hit with shells so much that like there's no real cover anymore. There's no real concealment or cover. Kursk was different because the forests were largely intact still for a majority of the time, so you could move in somewhat of cover, obviously. It also was a little bit different in just like how the front line was there versus like, Pokrovsk, for instance. Like, I don't think you could send an SSO team in Pokrovsk to go get a unit out that's encircled very easy. They'd
Mhm.
probably get smacked by drones. A lot of times, what you'll see in some of these other areas is the unit will actively just keep dropping the guys food, water, ammo, saying, "Hey, hold out, do what you can," and then they'll try to get back to them. Like with that breakthrough in Dobroprilia, the units that got or the
Mhm.
positions that got surrounded there, like there was still Ukrainians there, and they're still, they were still fighting. So they just have to wait until the other Ukrainians can push the Russians back out. Sometimes that doesn't happen, then they get POWs. But like a lot of times, if a position's surrounded in the east, they'll try to get them out, but like drones, they'll just drop them supplies with drones, say, "Hey, hold out, we'll
Yeah.
try to get you." And a lot of
What
times, most of the Ukrainians will hold out and wait. Some don't, some do.
Yeah. There was a video of the Ukrainians using a vampire to drop an e-bike to a guy. I don't know if you've seen that video.
Yep.
A pretty famous video now. That was about a month ago. Um, how do the Ukrainians use your unit, and how do they coordinate and communicate with the, on the seams with the Ukrainian units?
So we're actually intermixed. So like we're not just a foreign group running around within the Ukraine Army or Ukraine Defense Forces, whatever you want to call it. We're intermixed, so we have Ukrainians in our unit, in our fire teams. Like basically, if there's, you know, usually if there's two of us, there's two Ukrainians in a four-man team. Sometimes there's three Ukrainians, one of us. So we're like intermixed pretty well. A lot of the Ukrainians have picked up English, or they're picking up English. Most of my guys know like the basic commands to get by as well. Some of us speak a little bit more Ukrainian than others, but all of them know like left, right, front, back, friendly, enemy, Sterlite, like shoot, blah blah blah. So like it hasn't really been that big of an issue for us. But like most of our guys have been here a while too. So
Mm-hmm.
and that, like even in the 59th, like we never really had an issue with you know, talk like communicating with local Ukrainian units. There was always somebody that we could work with to either get the information we needed or to retransmit the information back to the command to either get artillery, fire support, etc. We did have some friendly fire incidents, but it wasn't because we couldn't communicate who we were. It was because we had a battle plan, like, hey, we're going to assault this position. When you see whatever, a flare, or you hear a, machine gun burst for 4 seconds, we need you to keep shooting in this direction. Basically, like they always fucked up the lift fire, shift fire type deal.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't miscommunication. It was just the Ukrainians spraying rounds everywhere because they were told to shoot.
Right. Is
So
is there any specific missions that they send you guys on? Are you guys specialty in trench warfare, in
not anymore. Like
infiltration?
we just most of the stuff. So we've transitioned over predominantly to drone operations now. The tactics that we were using in 2023 and in the early part of 2024 just don't work anymore. I mean, you could probably do it, but you'd have to have a much higher risk tolerance than
Like
what
which
we
like
would run
which
on.
tactics? Like
Like what we would
Bradley
do,
assault,
what we
or
yeah, so what we did in 2023 and then early 2024 is we basically would use Humvees and basically like combined arms with drones. So we would use drones to hit the target before we, step off for the operation. While we're driving to the enemy front line, we would use more drones. And then typically what we would do is if the Russian front line's here, we would bypass the front line and hit their second line, basically get a foothold in that second line trench of the Russians, and then basically have a two-way firefight between the front line and then the third line.
Mhm.
Most often, the Russians would, like, basically once we got that second position, we'd have Ukrainians push that first position. More often than not, we would catch the Russians on open ground from that first position and just kill them.
Mhm.
And then, we would prepare for like a counterattack from their third line. We did that pretty heavily in 2023 up till early 2024. But like you could do it now, but like your risk ratio would have to be much higher. We always plan for like a 60% injury, like wounded or killed rate on all of our operations. You would have to push that to like 80 or 90% to do what we did now. Um, like I think if we did what we did, if we did the same stuff we were doing in 2023, 2024, we would have a lot more like killed in action. We had a pretty high injury rate in both those years. I think we roughly had, like, out of everyone that was in chosen, I think we had like an 85% injury rate, as in like 85% of our guys had gotten at least one injury. We had guys get, two, or like they'd go get shot in the whatever arm. They'd be back in 2, 3 months. Then they'd get another injury 2 months later. Like we had guys with like 3 or 4 injuries that kept coming back. In like 18 months of fighting, we had 11 killed in action, and then we had 3 other guys killed helping other units.
How many casualties you've taken recently? Out of how many people are in Chosen Company?
So like I think total from when we started in 2022 so like we shut down Chosen in May of this year, but from like 2022 till May of 2025, we had a total of 11 guys killed in action, directly with us. And then we had two other people killed, with other units that were helping them with some operations. But like overall, we've had probably since we started the thing, probably around like 100 to 120 guys total.
Mhm.
Usually at any one time, we had 50 to 60 like on contract with other guys on vacation or just doing whatever else. So like we've had a pretty low casualty rate when it comes to like killed in action. Our wounded rate though is like 85%.
Oh,
Um, I've been wounded like 2 times, 3 times if you count contusions, but like TBIs are a dime a dozen here, so it doesn't really count, I don't think.
mm. Is most of that from drones? I heard the percentage of drone
Um,
injuries like
a
80%.
lot of yeah, so most of our drone casualties for the Russians is much higher. On the Ukrainian side, it's still a lot, it's probably like for injured or killed Ukrainian side, it's probably a mix of like 60 to 70% artillery. The rest is drones, and like I would say like 60 to 70% artillery, indirect fire, small arms, and then 30 to 40% drones from the Russians. Um, like average. Certain sections of the front line, you're going to have more or less from drones. Now with Ukraine inflicting it on the Russian side, yeah, it's going to be like 80% probably, just because like Ukraine doesn't have the artillery amounts needed to fire, 20,000 shells a day or whatever the Russians are still doing. So, and
Right.
actually, I think even artillery's dropping off on the Russian side because the Ukrainians are hitting so far now with FPVs. Like
Mm.
I would bet the disparity between Ukrainian artillery shell usage and the Russians is probably like, I don't know, at like 1 to 3 to 1 to 5 or something now versus like the
Mhm.
1 to 10 that it used to be.
Right.
So like FPVs have been beneficial on the Ukrainian side 100%, because it's preventing, artillery fire.
Right. What do you think is the biggest issue or problem with the armed forces of Ukraine right now? Is it the manpower issue or is it something else?
No, so like I mean the manpower issue is it's not like look, it's Ukraine has plenty of guys. So like obviously Ukraine's not mobilizing the 18 to 25, but if you look at the 18 to 25 age group, there's not a lot of, you know, service capable people out of like that age group. That the 18 to 25 age group for Ukraine is one of the smallest age groups of the Ukrainian population. And then when you look at like fit to serve, like fully fit to serve, because like you have like three things for fitness rate. You have like fully fit, half fit, and then unfit. Like you can be half fit if you have like heart problems, you're like half fit. So you can do rear like admin basically.
Mhm.
The manpower isn't the issue. It's not that there's no men left in Ukraine. There's plenty, trust me. You see them all the time. Go to any fucking city or village, you'll see guys walking around doing whatever they want. The biggest issue facing Ukraine would be like the command and cohesion, and like in general, the training quality could be better. There is it's not like one limiting factor. It's a multitude of factors that build up to create a problem. The reason, like the breakthroughs on the front line that you see, like the that big one that happened near Dobroprilia, Radinsky, and Mirnograd, that that's because of manpower, but it's not that we don't have enough men. It's just that Ukraine, when it comes to managing or organizing, you know, where new mobilize or new volunteers go, they're not focusing on the infantry side. They're focusing on instead of replenishing brigades at the front, they're focused on building new assault corps or, boosting the drone, the unmanned aerial systems unit, that brigade or that corps or whatever you want to call it. It was 2% of the armed forces. Now they want to do 5% there. So like there's a lot of places that Ukraine is putting manpower, but at the end of the day, you need manpower like you need infantry to hold positions. You don't need to have like Ukraine doesn't need 500,000 infantrymen tomorrow, but they need enough. They need to work on the ratio between having enough drone pilots and having enough infantry. Currently, we have less infantry and more drones, which is needed, but we need to balance out that infantry. You know, there shouldn't be like 2 to 3 defenders for a kilometer stretch on the front line. That's just not feasible. You know, you should have 2 to 3 soldiers every 500 meters across the whole front line. It's just not happening. Some brigades are really weakened right now because of wounded, because of, you know, not getting replenishments. So, like, a lot of the problems in Ukraine, there's not like one singular issue on why, you know, Ukraine's not pushing the Russians back to the Russian border. There's a lot of them. And like, I don't think Ukraine's really like losing right now. But like they're obviously not going to be, they're not prepared to assault anywhere. You know, and I don't think, I think that's partly a decision they made, and also partly because of the effects of, you know, how they've worked mobilization, how they work reinforcing units, um, and like how they do public awareness. Like in Ukraine, everyone thinks like an infantryman just goes to the front line and dies. That's not really true. You know, I did infantry stuff for almost 80% of this war. I do a lot of drone stuff now. But like, it's not true. They need to do better on public awareness. They need to reform the mobilization stuff, like the TCC, the guys that go out and pick the guys up for evading the draft. That needs to get reworked properly. They need to rework how transfers are done. There's just a lot of problems that they have that are small ones, but it equals out to like, this is affecting the war effort. It needs fixed. Do they fix it? Are they fixing it or attempting to? Yes, but it's bureaucratic and it's really slow. But like, I always complain about it. So like command issues, there's a lot of people that are unfit for command. As far as like in the US we have, like, what's the best way to explain it without getting my ass chewed later by Ukrainian command? Because like, I mean, I'll get my ass chewed for it like usual, but like the biggest way to put it is, you know, like if you're like in the US military, to gain rank, you don't just gain rank for time in service. You know, it's about, at least for infantry usually. I mean, like some would probably argue that towards the end of GWAT it was just a free for all, but like historically, to get rank in the US military, you had to show that you were worthy of that rank. And in Ukraine, it's more of like, sometimes it feels like the officers are rubber stamped into a higher position because of time in service. They've been, you know, doing whatever for 2 or 3 years. So, oh, let's put you in charge of something. You'll be good at it. And it just doesn't really work out well. They're slow on removing the bad officers, or like not bad officers, but like, you know, like not everyone can be a combat officer. Like not everyone's cut out to be an infantry officer, plain and simple. And like Ukraine is really bad at getting the ones that are not fit for commanding a combat unit into a different role. They'll stick with it, and it takes months to get that switched. And that's whether it's a, you know, platoon officer, platoon, like a first lieutenant, like junior lieutenant, lieutenant, or second lieutenant, whatever, all the way up to like brigade level. They're really bad at removing officers that are not doing their jobs properly, getting people killed or injured for no reason. And that's just like the Soviet era system, so that hasn't been fully reformed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you how do you think this war is going to go during the next year? What are your predictions, or what are your gut feelings for the next,
I
moving
mean,
ahead for the next year?
hopefully the Russian population gets used to being cold like the Ukrainians have been for the last 3 years. Because like oil strikes, refinery strikes, gas strikes, electrical grids, like I don't think Ukraine's going to, you know, pull back on targeting Russian infrastructure, nor should they, to be quite honest. So hopefully the Russians get used to fucking freezing. Outside of that, man, it's just going to be it's going to be static warfare. It's going to be a slugfest. Neither side is willing to, you know, like, no Ukrainian politician is going to sit down and sign away Ukrainian land. It's like, it's just not going to happen. Whether that's Zelensky or the parliament or the Security Council here. It's not popular amongst the Ukrainian population. Like every Ukrainian, I can go ask my Ukrainians with me right now and be like, hey, do you want the war to end? They're all going to say yes. But if you say, hey, do you want the war to end, and you give up Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kharkiv, they're going to say, fuck you. Like everyone here wants the war to end, but they're not going to give up four territories for it, because the
Right.
Russians don't even control the territories. Why would they give it up? It's
Mhm.
not the Russian demands are not even close to reality, that it's not even worth, like this whole peace thing that Trump wants to do, it'll never happen. Neither side's gonna give way on that. So like I think you'll see Ukraine will ramp up long range strikes. And as people have noticed, the Ukrainians are doing it more. That's largely because all the time, money, and everything else they invested into their drone warfare and their drone industry has now like finally gotten its legs. They got production numbers up. They've got their semi-ballistic missile now. So like all this stuff that Ukraine's been working on the last 12 to 18 months is finally, fully combat ready, is out of testing. So like you're going to see a lot more, I would say you're going to see a lot more hits inside Russia. It's just about time. If like it's stuff that should have been happening 2 years ago, but the West wouldn't give Ukraine the munitions to strike that far, and it takes time to build a fucking, to launch a drone or a ballistic missile 1,000 kilometers or 2,000 kilometers. It takes time to build out those systems.
Mhm.
Um, Now that Ukraine finally has that capability, production's been ramped up. So like, I think a lot more shit in Russia is going to go boom here soon, probably over the winter and in the spring. On the Ukrainian side, I mean, they're just going to continue doing what they're doing, sitting in trenches, and then like there's not going to be some huge collapse on a front line anywhere. Neither side is like it'd be like a, what do they call it, like a black swan event for
Mhm.
like you'd have to you might as well buy a lottery ticket. You'll have better luck winning the lottery.
Right.
But like both sides are going to inflict as much damage on each other as they can. You know.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're settling in for a longer war. At least
Yeah, I mean,
the
I've
year
I've
moving
always I've
forward.
always said like I've always said like end of 2026, 2027 at the earliest. Like even in 2023 or like post Kiev defense, it was clear that neither side was going to win it quick. So
Mhm.
like I know a lot of people in the West are like, oh, they have HIMARS, it's the turning point in the battle, or oh, they get F-16s. Like that's not the case. Once the lines froze and it became attritional warfare, like it's going to take a long time for this war to play out.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get facts about what's actually going on in Ukraine. So it's important to talk to people like you that are actually doing it and are there. And so I appreciate you spending the time. It's getting cold there. You're tired. You've been on the line. The last thing you probably want to do is talk on a podcast. So, Ryan, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. And, I hope you stay safe there uh, in
Yep.
the next year at least coming up. Thanks for your
Yep. Hey,
time.
thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, you too.
The Flash Traffic Podcast.